Assalamu alaikum. In today's session with Pak SciComm, we have Sabika Shaban with us, who is an academic journals and publications specialist at the College of Islamic Studies, Hamad Bin Khalifa University, Qatar. Sabika is also an entrepreneur and a founder of Qatar Disability Resource Centre. And her area of research is also related to sustainability and disability studies in Qatar. One of the major highlights of Sabika's career is that she was honored by Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs by including her name in the honors list 2021. And she was the only one to be selected from that region, Qatar. And there were 150 nominees from all around the world, among which she was the only one to be selected. Sabika is also a recipient of the Student Life Award in Community Services in 2021 at Hamad Bin Khalifa University. So let's start our today's session with Sabika by welcoming her. Sabika, it's really an honor to welcome you to the session with Pak SciComm, and we are really happy that you spared your time.
Thank you so very much for the invitation. I'm really, really honored.
Yeah, we are honored too. Okay, Sabika, let's start with your introduction and your professional journey. So would you be kind enough to take us to your childhood, and then how did you make your early career education, and then how did you reach where you are today?
Inshallah, for sure. So thank you again extensively. So my name is Sabika. I originally come from Hyderabad in Pakistan, and I have lived predominantly as an expatriate. So I have resided within Dubai, Canada, and now I've been in Qatar for the last 10 years. Alhamdulillah, enjoyed every section and every phase of these experiences. And really connected with the Pakistani community everywhere we have gone. At what I started off, I never imagined myself getting into the journey of research. I started off completely imagining an entrepreneurial journey because I come from a very entrepreneurial family, and I did get into business in my early years. But I also veered off on another passion of mine, which is the English language, the content, and dealing with the beauty of just language in general. Once I had, through that interest, encountered providing support to faculty members. And that was it. Once I figured out what research is all about, I never looked back. So alhamdulillah, I found myself working in a university that I purposely strived for as soon as I figured out that research is something that really, really grabs my interest. And I currently work in Hamad Bin Khalifa University, which is one of the universities in this ecosystem we call Qatar Foundation. It's an incredible ecosystem because it's comprised of several different universities and with a lot of academic exchanges. It has policy think tanks, it has all sorts of stakeholders. And here is where I really dived into research and into a particular area, which is disability studies.
Okay, so let's talk about the research that you did. So would you elaborate it in a very simple language for our audience that are not very technical to your research area, so that they can also understand it?
Absolutely. Now, because I come predominantly from a social sciences field, chances are I don't have to translate much into simple language because you are all scientists. But what I delve into is specifically disability studies, and I do it from the social sciences approach. And what I really, really love to look into is the particular context in Qatar. Now, living in this country that I've called home for the last 10 years, we are a very interesting dynamic because we are 2.8 million people in this small state, out of which 2 million are migrants, are labor migrants. And so that leaves only 800,000 of us who are actually here with families and a social setting. Now, from that 800,000, Qataris still make up a minority. They still are only 1/3, and expatriates make up the majority. So all of a sudden, this is a very different dynamic from the usual. Now you add in the disability aspect. And so now you're talking about this disability aspect where we look at, for instance, education for children with disabilities. Now, if I was in, for instance, Canada, I pay taxes, the government uses the taxes to create an educational system and give it back to me, regardless of what my conditions are. But now you are in Qatar where you don't pay taxes. So you start looking into these things, that how much should the government give to this community that is not even their citizens, right? So this is a very interesting dynamic for me to look into, because we are talking about human rights, we're talking about dignity, we're talking about vulnerable populations, and we're talking about one of the most important themes of our era, which is education. So this is where my research domain is. To give you an example of what I look into, I'm a strong believer that we really need, especially for this part of the world, a new field, which is called expatriate studies. We have citizenship studies, we have minority studies, but none of that applies to people who are a majority in a country that they are not a citizen of. And so here in this area, for instance, one particular research project of mine looked into the absolute phenomenon of being an expatriate raising a child with a disability in Qatar. And what is amazing about social sciences, especially, is that there's a huge array of research methods to tackle certain problems. So I selected one particular research method, which is called a phenomenological approach, which actually describes that very phenomenon of being that person who's raising a child with a disability in Qatar. And so such questions are very, very interesting. And this is why research has intrigued so many of us, and even those who will be listening to this, the fact that it's all about putting pieces of the puzzle together and finding these new areas of how to approach our current problems.
Okay, Sabika, I was going through the list of achievements that you have already had at such a young age, and one of those achievements is that you are also the founder of Qatar Disability Resource Centre. Okay, you are also working in the area of helping the disabled and working out their problems and proposing solutions to that. But was there any particular point that this idea of making this resource center came into your mind, and please also tell us the working model of this center.
Absolutely. You see, I strongly believe, and this is where the place that I work in has strongly influenced me, because within HBKU, I work within the College of Islamic Studies. And what the College of Islamic Studies, or CIS, does is that it looks at various issues of our current world through the lens of a Muslim, a person of faith, right? And what it has really taught me is the fact that we are all incumbent with a responsibility to tackle issues that we have the capacity to tackle, right? So with resources come responsibility. So I found myself in an area where I had access to these resources. How Qatar Disability Resource came about? So Qatar Disability Resource, it's acronymed as QADR. QA for Qatar, D for disability, R for resource. QADR is Qadar. And Qadar, for those who are of the Islamic faith know, means God's design for you. And the idea of this Qadar platform is to allow people in the disability community to achieve that design, to really fulfill the potential that God has set out for them. And how do you do this? Well, as a researcher, I will say it's information. Information empowers people. If you know, then you can do. If you do not know, you will not be able to find that way of reaching your potential. So this is how Qatar started. Qatar started a few years ago when I realized that there were members in the community that simply did not know basic information on how to make the most. Now, predominantly, I targeted parents. I targeted parents who were completely lost, who completely had no idea what the next step is in order to make sure that their child lives a proper life of dignity. But then I realized that this not only targets parents, but it also targets all the professionals who work here. So whether we're talking educators, researchers as well, medical professionals, therapists, service providers, they all needed a means of connecting with the community on the ground and being able to exchange information. And after all, this works extremely well in Qatar, where we are such a small group. We are very few. I mean, 800,000 people is not a lot of people. So this is where the idea started. What the working model is, that it functions and thrives on information. But we're not going to stop there. Now we're going to go to the next stage. And the next stage is to build an online resource platform, because one thing that COVID taught me was the fact that we don't all speak in waiting rooms and areas of public spaces. We need a virtual space which is accessible to everybody. Within the platform currently, we have about 800 members in about a span of 3 years. But the disability community is a lot more than 800 members. And so this is how we're going to tackle it. So the next stage is, inshallah, a website that kind of takes all that rich information and puts it out there, so nobody, absolutely nobody, has a reason to be lost in their journey to really build a life of dignity.
Seems awesome. It's great. And you see, when you're working for Allah and for His creation, Allah awards you in many different ways. So the award, there is an award in the hereafter, inshallah, that rests for you. But also there are multiple awards that you get while living in this world too. And one of those awards that you got was award of Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs honors list, that you were included in that list of 2021. And you were one of the nominees that were about 150 nominees from around the world, and you were one of those, and then you were awarded with this award alone. So would you tell us something about this award and how did you end up getting this award?
No, alhamdulillah, that was an incredible opportunity, and that's a huge note of gratitude to Pakistan's MOFA to not only recognize an expatriate community that lives outside its borders, but I think what was really incredible for me was the fact that it was a disability-based nomination that was selected. The fact that, you know, this is an area which is not very much explored. You know, it's especially if I say in the context of Pakistan, and even whether it is within Pakistan's borders or Pakistan expatriate communities, we still do not pay attention. We still have a very strong culture of shame, of just a culture of shame that is associated with disability, which doesn't help anyone. So the fact that a disability-based nomination was chosen was incredibly touching. The reason I believe the nomination was chosen, because there is a lot of work to do. And the way I personally am approaching this work is multifold, is not only creating a way to connect the community where I live that are related to disabilities, but in terms of awareness raising as well, in terms of conducting research in that area, because in Qatar, the research done on disability is very minimal, and it's very quantitative. There is not much in-depth qualitative research that is done, as well as the fact that a lot of this research, I'm also aiming to apply it immediately to the ground. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that research lends you, is when your research is actually applied on the ground. And then inshallah, we're just hoping that whatever work is being done at this stage actually reaches that application stage.
Inshallah. Sabika, it's been great talking to you, and believe you me that you are yourself an inspiration for people like us too, not only for the young researchers and students and the females particularly, but you know, there are so many females in this area of, let's talk about Pakistan. So there are so many females who are so talented, and they are dedicated to work to do something for the humanity, or in the field of entrepreneurship, or many other fields. So at the end, I would like you to say something about those people and deliver a kind of a message that what should they do and what shouldn't they do to be successful, or to achieve something that they want to do in their life.
Oh, thank you so much. And this is so important, I think, right? Because I think one of the most powerful ways we move forward is by meeting others who inspire us. And I'm in a constant search of really people who continue to inspire. We are never doing this alone. A message for youth in general is the fact that I'm going to reiterate the fact that when you have access to resources, you have no excuse. There is a responsibility by God on you to find your purpose in life, to not waste it, and to find what drives you and really contribute to that sort of place, because we need people who are driven to solve various issues in our world. In different fields, whatever calls to you, whether it's whether it's environmental issues, scientific issues, sectarian issues, community issues, political issues. We all need all sorts of actors. So here we cannot waste the resources of our youth. We are a majority in the world, and we really, really need to understand the power we hold. For women in particular, I feel that now I'm going to speak as a researcher within the humanities field. For women in particular, we have the added, let's just say, power of extra empathy and extra level of connection with the community. We are so in touch with what goes around us if we choose to. And so when we embark on things like research, we can really provide a perspective that has not been looked at before, because until recent years, this entire field has been male dominated, or the entire field of research has been male dominated. And to some extent, in a lot of fields, it still is. But the perspective that women can offer, that cannot be contributed by men. And so I think that women need to feel very confident in their place in academia, in their place to be a part of the solution. And I would encourage each and every one to connect with all sorts of people that inspire them, men, women, everyone, children, adults, whoever it is, to be able to find their purpose and work towards it, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Sabika. It's been great talking to you, and we are really grateful to you that you spared time for us today. I totally understand that you have been very busy, and I hope that the message that we wanted to deliver through this talk to our younger students, especially to women, and to the so people of the society who have something, but they're not delivering enough to the society. And I hope this session it serves its intended purpose and inspires them to do something for others too. Thank you very much once again for joining us for this session.
Oh, thank you very, very much for the kind invitation, the moderation. I hope it added value. Thank you so much.